In today's show, Gary Payton II returns to practice. And while he's not going to play on Thursday evening, his return soon cometh. What does that mean for GP? And what does it mean for the Trailblazers? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond, and you are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. It's coming at you 5 days a week, free on all platforms, every single weekday, the only daily Trailblazers podcast. So make it a part of your daily routine and make it your first listen every day. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're going to start with the news, baby. GP2, Gary Payton II returned to practice. Keon Johnson is likely going to be available for the first time in a long time. And here we go. The Blazers are getting healthier. We'll talk about them getting healthier. It's been a while since we could say that. Then we're going to do a mini mailbag with questions about Anfernee Simons and his value contract compared to other guys who got paid this summer, and the long-term plans and future of Jusuf Nurkic on this team. That's what we'll do to close the show. Let's start with the news, though. This was big today. The Blazers, they had Monday off naturally because second night of a back-to-back. Tuesday, they didn't have media availability, which means they technically did not practice according to league rules. But what it probably means is they just didn't do a bunch of stuff on the court, although I imagine that they still got in there and watched a little bit of film together. But on Wednesday, you are listening to Thursday, December 8th show. On Wednesday, they got out there and practiced. There was some notable names joining the court for the first time in a long time. Gary Payton II makes his full practice debut. According to Casey Holdall of Trailblazers.com, GP participated in a lot of the parts of practice. Gary Payton remains out. Like he's not going to play Thursday when the Trailblazers host the Denver Nuggets, but it is very significant that he played. More on that in a moment. The Blazers injury report they submitted this afternoon. Drew Eubanks, Josh Hart, both listed as probable. That means they're very likely to play. And the big one, Keon Johnson, who has been out since November 9th with a left hip injury, upgraded to probable. I'm not sure Keon plays, but having another ball handler available should they need it is very important. And you just want Keon to be able to do stuff. He spent a lot of time wearing cool sweatsuits. And you want him in a jersey. He's shown some flashes to have some utility for the Blazers. He gets after it on defense. He's a really good athlete. Some of his decision making, all that stuff leaves a little bit to be desired because he's a young guy still figuring it out. But it's good to have a young guy still figuring it out on the court and available, particularly for a team that's been a little bit light on ball handling. Like I said, with Keon, I don't think he'll play. Dame's healthy, Ant's healthy. Justice Winslow is going to have some ball handling duties. He's healthy. Josh Hart, if he plays with the ankle injury and he's played through it because he's just tough as they come, you probably have enough guards in front of him that you wouldn't break the glass on Keon. But having him available, big, and just like big for Keon, happy to see him back on the court. GP, though, remains out. GP is out. The Blazers, after Thursday, they play the Nuggets on Thursday. On Saturday, they begin a 2-game set against the Minnesota Timberwolves Saturday and Monday, and then they head out on a long 6-game road trip through Texas and Oklahoma. That's I think it's pretty likely that one of those Minnesota games is the game that GP makes his return because it's a significant thing to come back to practice. It's important that he gets out and plays, right? Because with the team, you get some continuity, get some there, but also just get your, he's been working out before games. If you're at the arena, he wasn't always doing that, but in the recent weeks, he's been out there getting shots up and doing things like that. He's clearly ramping his way up, getting closer. I think it's been reported by a couple of people in the Blazers sphere, including Sean Hyken of the Rose Garden Report, that the whispers are that it's close. You return back to practice. it's close. And Chauncey Billups said as much, that GP is as close as he's ever been to returning. This is a big deal. This is the Blazers' biggest offseason signing, the guy they gave a multi-year contract to, the guy that they spent a portion of the mid-level exception that hard capped them, so it was kind of limited some of their future flexibility. Like, they went and paid to get GP because they wanted to get GP. Like, he was a target, and he came here because this is where he was going to get the most money. Portland opened up the pocketbook to make sure that they got him. And then he undergoes this core surgery kind of late in the summer. It seems like they never outright reported a setback, but it just seems like he was hoping to be ready close to opening day. We're now into he'll play into the second week of December in a season that started the third week of October. Like, he's missed a more significant chunk of time than was probably initially hoped for. Again, I don't think I haven't seen reports of like officially there was a setback, but clearly he didn't heal the way they thought he might have thought he hoped that he would. Part of the hurdle, though, with playing is not just getting your body right. It's not just like, okay, my core feels a lot better, I can play. It's the confidence to go 100%, right? To play as hard as you possibly can, to push your body to the limit, because if you can't do that, if you can't play as hard, you can't play in the league. But you got to assume that Payton's getting close. If he's practicing, he's really close. I assume he will play either Saturday or Monday. If I had to guess, we'll call it Saturday. But I think he's going to play soon, because getting back to practice is a big step. Like, that is a big step. So what does it look like when he plays? That's the big question, right? Like, whose minutes does he take? I think the simple way is that he will eat into Trendon Watford's minutes. There's a chance on some nights Watford is the backup 5 and Drew Eubanks doesn't play as much, but I think Eubanks has been pretty good. I think they need that size to continue to have a chance on the glass. In general, just while they've been okay in those small ball minutes, it's mostly matchup specific. Eubanks is more of an every night contributor than I quite frankly thought he would be, but he's been good. You got to play him. So I think it's Watford's minutes in the rotation who GP steals when that happens. And that's assuming that the Blazers stay with a 9-man rotation. They've pretty much gone 9 deep. There's been nights that they've only gone 8 deep. Chauncey Billups is just, or they'll play 8 and then someone else for like 6 minutes in the first half. Like, Billups is comfortable with who he's comfortable with. He's been riding his guys. He's playing Jeremy Grant and Josh Hart a whole bunch of minutes. He's trying to win these basketball games. And he has said, I think on multiple occasions, but certainly once in a story I read by Jason Quick in The Athletic, was that 9 is his preference. 9 is his preference. I'm not sure I've heard Chauncey say that out loud, but I've watched him play 9 guys enough to know that 9 is his preference, right? He wants to play 9. He has played 10. Last year he played 10 a handful of times, but he would play the 10th guy. It would be often Tony Snell. It would be like 8 minutes. You get 8 minutes. That's 2 4-minute shifts. It's really hard to get it's hard to do much in a 4-minute shift in the NBA. That's why coaches don't love it, unless you're really going to stretch guys out and play like the 10th guy a bunch of minutes and like shrink your starters minutes a bunch. 9 is just a more comfortable number. I mean, like Nick Nurse in Toronto, 8 is a comfortable number. 7 would be okay with him. 6 would be all right if he really could lean into it. But like 9 is where Chauncey's been at. They could go 10, though. And if they go 10, then it's pretty easy to see GP play with what has been the standard rotation of Watford and Eubanks and Winslow off the bench. You get those minutes, you are good to go. You slide GP in there, you will be just fine. Shaedon Sharpe is the other name I'm not mentioning. I think they're just gonna carve out those 15 minutes for Sharpe no matter what. He deserves to play. He's been good. Leave him in there. So if they do go 10, I think that GP eats into the starters minutes. I think Josh Hart, who's playing like 36 a night, drops down to like 32. Grant, who's playing in that same 35, 36 a night, he drops down to 33. Then you can steal 5 minutes. Payton can play up and Hart can play up. You don't want to play a ton of minutes with him at the 4, but you can steal some minutes where GP is effectively a small forward on a lot of nights because he can guard up a spot and you'll be okay. You can just play him at the 2 and leave Justice Winslow in a little bit longer. It's not hard to get creative. I think in general, that's the way it goes, is that if they stay 9, he eats into Trendon Watford's minutes. And if they decide to go 10, you just pick away at everyone's, particularly Josh Hart and Jeremy Grant, who are playing a bunch, their minutes a little bit more. Maybe Anfernee Simons plays a little bit less. Maybe Damian Lillard plays a minute less. You steal 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minute here and there. That's you're up to 8, 9, 12 minutes. I don't think initially GP is going to play like 25 minutes a night. I even think when he's at his max playing for this team, he's playing like in the 22 to 23 range. He is at his best a high leverage moment defensive sub. He can come in there, and when you really need to guard, when the game is on the line, he can really guard. But you're not going to play him 35 minutes a night. That is not the skill set he has. I don't think he brings enough quite offensively with what the Blazers do that he's going to really have a ton of utility there. But his ability to guard on the ball and guard the point of attack will help everyone. It'll let Josh Hart have less of those assignments. It'll let particularly Jeremy Grant have less of those assignments. And you'll have more minutes with plus defenders on the court. There's times when you could have GP and Justice Winslow and Josh Hart and Jeremy Grant, all four of those on the court in a small ball unit alongside, say, Damian Lillard. That's Dame plus the wings, a lineup I really would love to see. And it's 4+ defenders and one of the best offensive players of his generation. That's the exciting stuff that GP brings. Again, I don't think it's a big minute role right away. I think he's 15 minutes-ish when he starts playing, limited to maybe 20, but he plays 17. And then he's like, even at when he goes full bore here, when he gets to January, we're talking 22 to 26 when it really comes down to it. Some nights he'll play 28, but he is not a 30-minute-a-night guy on this roster. He can have real value playing half the game. Real value playing half the game. But that's a realistic look at this, what I believe based on people I talked to in the preseason, what I've seen from GP and last year with the Warriors, what I believe he will do. One scout told me early in the season is like, Gary Payton is what Justice Winslow is for this team. So maybe he just steals Justice Winslow minutes entirely. That was like in preseason. I had that conversation with someone who's a scout in the Western Conference. I don't think that's how it's going to go down, but I think that's how GP is viewed. He's a tough physical defender with some limited offense. And he can, he's smaller, like probably 6'2", but he plays much bigger because of his low center of gravity and his strength and, the dog in him per 36, woof, etc. So yeah, awesome to have GP back. Cannot wait to see what it looks like with this team. I think that's going to be, it's one of the most intriguing parts of the season, is it's how he fits and what he can do. Because like I said, the Blazers paid to go get him. They wanted him to be part of this, and now he's back and part of it. All right, today's episode was supposed to be a mailbag episode. We're just going to do listener questions all episode long as we do, but the GP stuff was important. Welcome back, Keon Johnson, to the lineup as well. I feel like that's an important little note as well. So we are going to close the show with some questions. Let's talk about Jusuf Nurkic and his strengths and his weaknesses and what his fit is with the Blazers in the near and long term. That's the first question we'll answer. But first, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster. You can find them because you can use simple tools like screening questions, which make it easier to focus on candidates with just the right skills. So you can find the ones with the right experience. You can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and who you'd like to hire. Also, with LinkedIn Jobs, you can make it clear on LinkedIn that you're hiring by using the purple hashtag hiring frame on your LinkedIn profile. That way, when people visiting you on that service, on that app, on that website, they'll know that you got a job that's open for them. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. Let's talk a little mailbag stuff. This is supposed to be a full mailbag episode. If you want to get involved in a future mailbag episode, the best way to do that is to email me at lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. You can tweet at me, but Twitter is not a useful tool for this. So yeah, shoot me. You know what to do. Shoot me an email, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. Our first question of the night comes from Alex K. Alex, I'm paraphrasing here because Alex sent a longer email, but it was basically like, do Nurk's strengths outweigh his weaknesses? Talking Jusuf Nurkic, comparing what he does well and what he struggles with, and wondering what is his long-term future here with the Portland Trailblazers. Let me say this. I think the last 2 games, Nurk has been really good when it's mattered. He's kind of started a little slow, but like down the stretch of games, Nurk's been good. There was one hilarious sequence against the Pacers on Sunday in which Nurk bowled through Miles Turner, scored and won. He did the too small thing where you like put your hand below your knee and say he's too small. And then Miles Turner knocked him over on the other end and dunked on him. It was like a perfect encapsulation of kind of the frustration with Jusuf Nurkic. When he's good, he can power through a really physical and talented defender in Miles Turner. And when he lacks that focus, he can maybe half flop or half just lose his balance and get dunked on like in moments, like a perfect dichotomy of the sort of challenges of Jusuf Nurkic. And it's mostly consistency. Nurk is really shooting the ball well this year. His weaknesses on that end are still his weaknesses. He's never been a good finisher around the rim. He continues to not be a very good finisher around the rim. He's been a little better than his early Portland career, but still, for big men, well below average. His mid-range game, he doesn't have much. In between game, and all of that, you see it sometimes. He rushes, he takes flip shots, he doesn't power over people. He's not an explosive leaper, so it's like you want him to dunk the ball, but some of that is just like physical limitations. All that's real. He's still decent in the post. He's not great, but he's decent in the post. And in the right matchups, he can be really good. It's mostly consistency. He's good when he's good, and he's really bad when he's bad. But he's been shooting the dang cover off the ball from three. Leading the team in three-point percentage on admittedly low volume, but like 47% from three, making a ton. I think it's an interesting thought experiment for me, the podcaster, Mike Richmond. Like, how many three-pointers would Nurk have to make before every single one I don't say, okay. But it's more than he's made so far, because like he's making half of them, right? Like he's making half of the threes he takes, and still every time I'm like, not great, Bob, but he's been really good at that. Like, this is a me problem. He's been fine shooting threes. And I think shooting threes, it doesn't open up, like, teams aren't going to wildly close out on Nurk. And even if they do, like, he's not going to like beat them off the dribble attacking closeouts. More so what it does is it just brings, like, if Nurk is open, right? Like if he's open from the 3-point line, it just means you have to take a half step towards him and then the ball can move from there. Or you have to look at him from three and the ball can move from there. Like, it does open up a little bit of the way teams are going to guard him. I still haven't come around, like I just said, on him shooting threes, but he's been good at it. Like, what am I going to do? At some point I got to drop my biases. He's been fine. He's been good shooting threes. He's been fine overall on offense. It's mostly a consistency thing. On defense, I think this is a little more troubling for me with Nurk. In the past, when Nurk played, the Blazers pretty much always like he was on the court. The Blazers pretty much always fielded a high level, or excuse me, an above average defense. They were average to above average with Nurk on the court, and then when Nurk sat, they were a mess. So I was like, well, Nurk is so key to what they do. They have to play him. But because the scheme has changed with Chauncey Billups and they're not playing just and exclusively and only no matter what drop coverage like they did under the previous coaching staff, they're trying a bunch of different things. They play, for my money, they play three distinct defenses. I'm going to give up their calls. So if you're a Blazer, someone who works in the Blazers coaching staff, sorry. They play fist, which is their zone. They play 5, which is like their soft, a little bit softer dropping man-to-man, and 55, which is their switching defense. You will see them call it from the bench. Watch Roy Rogers. 2 hands, 55, 1 hand, 5, or fist. Those are the 3 calls. They don't really play like a bunch of that straight drop coverage. They want to switch and they want to, get out on the perimeter. Or they want to play zone, which has like a bunch of switching principles as well, right? Because you're matching up you're still matching up in zones in the NBA, but you're handing guys off as they cut through. And the Blazers zone principles even allow for some following off the ball if guys cut into space and yada yada and overload sides. Like it's a little more complex than maybe the zone I'm familiar with from the low levels of basketball that I've been involved in. But in general, I think the scheme changing for Nurk has limited some of what his defensive impact can be. He's just not good switching and guarding on the perimeter. That's not where his strength is. Even playing at the level, like sometimes when they play 5, like when they play, they're sort of not switching, but like showing defense, like drop or soft drop. Like he's not way far back like they used to be, but like a softer drop where they're just not switching 1 through 5. Nurk will get at the level and he'll get beat just because he's like up too high and doesn't have the lateral quickness. Like I don't even really blame Nurk for that, but it is true that with this scheme, he struggles. And in fact, the Blazers have, for the first time in his tenure on the Portland roster have been a little bit better when he sits on defense than when he plays. Again, on-off numbers aren't perfect, but like it kind of matches the eyeball test. There are nights when Nurk has struggled. There are nights when Chauncey Billups is just frustrated with Nurk. I think the scheme stuff is never going to fit his physical tools. It is what it is. Like the way the coach wants to play doesn't fit the way Nurk wants to play, or Nurk is capable of playing. That's just true. Sometimes you want to tailor it to your personnel. Other times you just want to play the way you believe is correct and hope your personnel can fit it for this purpose. And Chauncey's not he doesn't do this across the board. He's not that type of stubborn, but in this case, he believes this is the right way to play defense and it doesn't always fit Nurk. There are nights when he's better at it and there's nights when he really struggles at it. It's a consistency thing. I just think it's true. I don't even think Nurk's been that bad. I think he's mostly been a scapegoat of people being frustrated with him. And it's because some of his stuff that he does, like smoking layups, is frustrating. Flopping a little bit, it can be frustrating. I don't think he's been bad though. I think he's kind of been fine. There's been nights when he's just like straight up been solid against the Pacers. He was really good in the fourth quarter in the Blazers' most recent game. Like he helped the Blazers bring that game home and make sure that it didn't get close down the stretch. I thought he played well when it mattered, when maybe the other Blazers' offensive parts weren't as good down the stretch or weren't as loud down the stretch, I should say. I think Nurk's an easy scapegoat, and for whatever reason, he's the scapegoat on this team. It's who fans like to blame. I'm not telling you to not, you can fan however you want. I just think he's maybe gotten a little bit too much flack, although there's been nights when he's been bad. Like, you know it when you see it. I'm not defending him by any means. I just think like, Nurk, to me, overall, Nurk's been like a B, right? He's been okay. It's just when he's bad, he's really bad. And I think Chauncey Billups, to his credit, has kind of yanked Nurk when it's time to yank him. So that's like the final question or the sort of overarching question for Alex is like, what do you do with Nurk long term? You're kind of stuck with him for now. The Blazers gave him 4 years, $70 million contract, fully guaranteed this summer. It's hard for me to see a situation where there is another team that actively wants to take on that contract unless the Blazers are throwing in a sweetener. I don't think it makes sense for the Blazers to like put in a first round pick to give up Jusuf Nurkic just to get off from the money. Or there's a scenario when you take back some bad money. But the way contracts work in the league now, you're not going to really find anyone with longer years than the 3 that Nurk has remaining after his season. The longest contracts you can sign are 4 years, or you're only signing 5 if you're signing a max contract. You're not trading Nurk for a max contract guy, probably, unless you need to make the money work somewhere down the line for a really big trade, and that's a whole nother conversation. So you're trading him for like a like-skilled center who's taken on that Nurk money, even after this year, 3 years, $54 million left on his contract. I don't think that's very appealing. I think you're just kind of stuck with him because of the contract you gave him. You got to figure out how to make it work with him. He's not terrible. He's like an league average center, and there are nights when him being gigantic and forceful are really valuable. If there are more nights when they can get the high level force out of Nurk, there are more good nights. It's just a problem with him has always and continues to be consistency. When Nurk's good, he punishes teams. When Nurk's bad, he's a punishment for the Blazers. All right, so let's come back in the third segment. Got a question about Anfernee Simons and his contract compared to some of his peers around the league. Join me in that third segment, won't you? Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked on Blazers. This next question comes from Todd with 1D. Shout out to Todd with 1D. Oh, a correction real quick. Yesterday, I credited a question to the homie Jeff G. Wrong Jeff. This podcast is popular with Jeffs. It was Jeff A who sent that in. So Jeff A, you maybe didn't hear that question because he didn't send me a note, but it was Jeff A, not Jeff G. Jeff G, another Jeff, also popular. This question, though, comes from Todd with 1D, who asks a question about Ant's contract. I'm again paraphrasing this one here because it was kind of a longer email. I like the emails. I like a longer question. I like nuance and understanding and all those things. And if I don't answer your question, I often will respond. I've become pretty good at responding to emails. I'm not going to respond to tweets. They're too much. So if you want to contact me, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. But the question from Todd is basically like, is Anfernee Simons' contract of value at this point, considering his production? Probably. Probably, yeah. Yeah, it probably already is. Ant is one of the best shooters in the league. He is so darn good on offense that his defensive liability doesn't really matter. It matters more on the Blazers next to Damian Lillard, because your contract and your existence and your skill set doesn't exist in a vacuum. You don't have an overall 2K rating. Your coworkers matter. They really do. And in context, what your value is a much better way to understand value than let's compare him to some other players. But with that said, let's compare Ant to some other players, shall we? He wasn't the only person to get paid a 4-year contract that starts in the $100 million range. Jordan Poole got 4 for $123. Tyler Hero in Miami got 4 for $120. Jalen Brunson in New York got 4 for $104. Anfernee Simons has been better than all those dudes. Jordan Poole forgot how to shoot. I don't know what happened, but he forgot how to shoot. If he learns how to shoot again, he'll be a much better basketball player, but his value is on offense, and he shot bricks to start the season. So no debating with Jordan Poole. Ant's been better, and he's cheaper. Get out of here. Tyler Hero is, he has missed some time, and I don't think he's an ideal fit with what they kind of want to do with the rest of the roster. He's a better rebounder than Ant, and they're comparable on sort of some playmaking stuff. But even then, I don't think Tyler Hero was way better as a playmaker than Anfernee Simons when I watch him play. Ant's just been better than him. He's just been better. They're closer certainly than Poole. Hero's production is similar to Ant, but give me Ant. He's been better. He's just been so good on offense. He's been such a special shooting season, shooting off the catch, shooting off the dribble, shooting off movement. Ant is making a case for being one of the just straight up best overall holistic shooters in the league. Last guy's Jalen Brunson. I'm a big Brunson guy. I love his game. Lefty who shoots a bunch of pivoting little middies. I love Brunson's game. He is a better playmaker than Anfernee Simons. He's a better defender than Anfernee Simons. He's not been a better offensive player. Again, the shooting is just what offsets Ant, and Ant has added with that shooting the ability to get into the paint, the ability much better than he ever has in the past. He's really made a concerted effort to be better and stronger getting to the rim. There are nights when physicality can take Ant out of the game, but more and more often, Ant is using that functional athleticism to get to his right hand, hit floaters, finish all the way at the cup. And if you give him space because you're worried about that, he is just such a good shooter off the dribble. If you play even mildly soft drop coverage, if you aren't all the way at the level and probably above it, heels on the 3-point line, he's coming off a screen and firing, and he's shooting the cover off that thing. He's been awesome on offense. So yes, I think Anfernee Simons, when you look at his peers who signed similar contracts this summer, he's been better than them at less money. Dude is valuable. I mean, in some ways, the market determines your value. The market was about 4 for $100 and up for these kind of scoring combo guard types. Brunson is a point guard, but scoring combo guard types and Hero and Poole, they got more money because to that point, they had been more productive in the league, just overall body of work. Jordan Poole was really freaking good in the playoffs in a way that and Tyler Hero had been really freaking good during those bubble run. They played high leverage games at really high level. That's just production that Ant has not matched yet. It made more sense that they were going to get more money, right? Ant wasn't going to be able to negotiate against them. And also timing wise, sign his contract first. But Ant's been better than them, and his contract has some, he seems at $25 million a year average annual value. Anfernee Simons seems like a deal in the league. The bigger question is his long-term fit next to Dame and how good you can be with that duo. I think they can be really good if they get rolling on offense, and then you figure out the defense because the roster has better defenders behind them. Simons has been excellent this year. I don't love the sort of pocket peeping nature of talking about someone's value on the court in relation to their money, but I think there was some sticker shock when he signed this contract this summer because I thought it was going to be 4 for 80, right? 4 for 80, 4 for 90, I think were the numbers I threw out here just guessing on the podcast. Guessing based on, a little bit of intel, but not I wasn't sitting there talking with Joe Cronin or whatever about it. I'm talking to people around the league. Hey, what do you think? They were projecting in that 4 for 80, 4 for 90 range. He made 4 for 100, and I think initially I was like, oh, that's a bunch of money, but he could outplay that contract moving forward and down the line and all these things. And I think there was, fans were like 400, that's a bunch for Ant. And even so, there were some times this year when he's had some tough nights, some tough fourth quarters, and people are like, oh, the money, blah, 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 blah. I don't love that, but he's been worth the money. He's been worth the money. And if you look at his peers who are getting paid the same way, he's been better than them. He's been awesome on offense this year. Awesome. He's an awesome basketball player. Take that to the bank. Take that to your direct deposit every 2 weeks, like an NBA paycheck. That is going to do it for today's show. Tomorrow evening, the Blazers play the Denver Nuggets at home at the Moda Center. I will recap the game after that happens. Should be a lot of fun. We'll see if Keon Johnson's back in the rotation. Hopefully GP will get some updates on his maybe future availability. If not, Monday's show, we'll talk Gary Payton and what he either is about to do or has done. That's what we do here. It's a daily podcast, 5 days a week, every single weekday. So make it your first listen every day and come back for tomorrow's show and tell your friends about it. The way that people hear about podcasts is that their homies tell them. So if you have a friend who's a Trailblazers fan, tell them to check out Locked On Blazers. They can find it wherever they get podcasts and also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.